Is it worth buying a cheap used BMW? The reputation for BMW has been one which high maintenance costs and reliability out the door. But here's an example of a modern day BMW that's arguably as reliable as most Toyotas. I've owned at least 10 BMWs in my time, and I've got a great experience to tell you that there were some really bad ones, but right now these days you can get yourself an absolutely great modern used BMW that's actually somewhat reliable and certainly worth your time. Most people choose to buy BMWs like I do, mainly because of the looks of, style, and performance that they outdo a lot of their competition. Why would you buy this when you could buy this for the same kind of money, but just buy this one slightly used? Most BMWs do depreciate at a pretty substantial rate, with the exception of some very exclusive high performance models that tend to hold their value, like some of the very low number M cars. Most BMWs depreciate at a pretty alarming rate. In fact, most of the everyday average BMWs, you would actually expect in a 5 or 6 year time frame to lose as much as 40 or 50% of its original value. Seems like a massive deal, doesn't it? BMWs, Volkswagens, Volvos, Mercedes-Benz, and many other European models are known as very complex vehicles with high levels of technology and low levels of overall durability. In some cases, they're absolutely right, and I've definitely lived the life. I've owned numerous vehicles. But the bottom line is things are changing. Things have gotten a lot better in some ways and many much worse in others. But with the modern day BMWs, things are starting to change. In 2017, 2018, they introduced some of their more modular engines. The B38, B48, and B58 engines are all heat encapsulated, direct injected, but with higher levels of durability, better fuel systems, absolutely bulletproof 8-speed ZF automatic gearboxes. And modern day BMWs have seen some massive improvements over even a lot of their competition. And with BMW having a host of engines like the N20 piling up timing chains, the N54 with twin turbo issues, with fuel injection problems, with wastegate rattle, and a host of other leaks and coolant problems and oiling issues, as well as the S65 and S85 high revving naturally aspirated V8 and V10 engines that were known for eating up rod bearings like candies at a carnival. I could go on all day, but the list of various BMW engines in history that have shown high levels of problems, huge expenses in terms of maintenance and repairs, and I could throw all kinds of justifications at you why you should not buy a used BMW. But the fact remains things are changing, and there are now currently a select number of engines and BMWs that are certainly worth the risk, because modern day BMWs are much more durable with specific engines. Now there's certain engines you want to avoid and other ones you want to pay attention to. But the beauty is you can save a whole host of cash, and buying a used BMW represents a great opportunity to get into one of your favorite vehicles, one of your favorite European manufactured vehicles, to get in there, enjoy the great handling, the performance, the luxury appointments, and the style at fractions of the dollar. I already said you can expect in 5 years to see as much as 40 or 50% of a discount from brand new. Because it's not uncommon now for many modern BMWs to run 150, 200, 250,000 miles all day if they're properly maintained. If you're running a vehicle for 10,000 miles a year, that equates to 20 years. By 20 years rolling around the clock, you're done with that vehicle, you're tired of it, you're sick of it, and you're ready to move on. So if you can get 20 years out of an average of 10,000 miles a year, you've got everything you need out of that vehicle. And a well-maintained BMW can in fact go that distance. There was a time when you didn't want to risk buying a 5-year-old BMW. It just wasn't worth the risk. Financially, it could literally bankrupt you. But modern day BMWs are not necessarily in the same league as they used to be. As a matter of fact, the engine found under the hood of this beautiful car right here is the same engine that Toyota's borrowing in their Supra. That's right, Toyota and BMW are utilizing the exact same engine. That's right, they call it the B58. It's an inline 3-liter turbocharged 6-cylinder that makes well in excess of 300, almost 400 horsepower in different states of tune, and is coupled up to the gloriously reliable 8-speed ZF automatic transmission. And in many cases, all-wheel drive applies. In this case, you have xDrive, and BMW's xDrive and their ZF automatic transmissions are some of the best in the business. They drive well and they're reliable. Now, from what I understand, BMW is saying that, and cars with that particular drivetrain mean that it's very easy to own one of these vehicles for many, many years and not worry over excessively about durability problems. Are they as reliable as a modern day entry-level Honda? Probably not, but they do quite well for a modern luxury vehicle. These are one of the more reliable luxury vehicles on the market today. And for example, an M340i is the exact car that I would strongly recommend if somebody wants to get into something, a mid-size luxury sporty sedan. This is one of the best vehicles you can get your hands on right now. And being that Toyota shares that drivetrain, you know that Toyota, by putting their stamp on there, means that they mean business, and it must have a level of durability. But it's proving itself, and most owners of these vehicles are finding not a whole lot of significant issues with these over a period of time. Now, annual servicing isn't going to be all that cheap with modern day BMWs, and as you get into the used spectrum, you're going to find increasing costs. But according to Repair Pal, they rate that the average BMW is going to cost about $968 per year to service. It's going to likely see 0.9 failures per year on average, and they're rated at about 30 out of 32 for overall reliability. That said, when you look at Consumer Reports, they actually rank BMW in the last few years as one of the most reliable brands on the planet. And for my own personal take, the reason why some of those numbers are so bad from Repair Pal, in my own personal opinion, has to do with some of the older models, the older generations. Mostly the V8s are the areas where you're going to have to consider staying away from if you're worried about long-term ownership costs. If you want a vehicle that gives you good performance, but you also don't want to worry exclusively massively about some of the big repairs that might come with it, you might want to stick with the B48, which is the Turbo 4, or the B58, the Turbo 6, or which all come after about 2017, 2018, then you're good to go. Because when you look at 3 BMWs in a row, you think, well, they all look the same. They must be all the same for reliability. But see, that's the problem. And a lot of people just paint the whole problem with one brush, and it's not exactly true. Because a lot of it comes down to the drivetrain specific. And a lot of the vehicles, the technology is not that unreliable. The weak areas, of course, with some of these vehicles are air ride suspensions, and I've experienced that myself. A lot of them that sit on air ride or self-leveling systems, you're going to have issues with airbags and sometimes the air compressor, the bags themselves, or even relays and sensors. Other areas of concern are coolant systems, water pumps. On the older systems, the new versions with the B58 engine does carry a mechanical water pump, so even if it leaks, it's not massively expensive. But the older electric water pumps were huge money and a huge expense. So if you're buying, say, a 2009 N54, yes, you're going to have huge expenses for thermostat, water pump repairs, cooling lines, you name it. Leaks from coolant and oil are going to be the name of the game. But the modern day vehicles like this, you have the xDrive 40i, means you get the B58 because of that 40i series, and that's going to be one of the more durable setups. Heat encapsulation to prevent the high and low swings, which is going to take less of an impact negatively on the plastics. You also have better fueling systems, better structure on the case of the engine. You're also going to have better fuel injection, better fuel pumps, and of course, the infamously unreliable from previous generations, the new engines have the improved mechanical water pump. On top of it, there is a weak area for a lot of these Turbo 6s. Right down here, you have the oil filter housing gaskets. They can mix, either leak coolant, oil, or both. That is still an ongoing issue. But other than that, there's very few weaknesses in the modern day B58 and B48 engines. So from my experience, late model engines are quite different. For example, right here we have an X5. This is the 40i series. And as we look around, they do give you the great headlights, all the new detailing, nice little accents. Of course, little one-touch accent in. You get big glass on the roof, makes it nice. And they are very nicely styled. You do get LED taillights right here. This is the xDrive 40i. The xDrive in BMW means all-wheel drive. The 40i represents the B58, which is that newer version of the turbocharged 3-liter engine. That's a good engine. Then we look over here, we have an X7. This is slightly larger. Now the X7 can come with that same 40i, and if you're gonna buy the X7, I would strongly recommend going that route. It's gonna be more durable. But here we have the M50i. Now anything designated M50i, for example, a 5 Series 550, 750, X5 or X7 50i, you're gonna have the twin turbo 4.4 liter V8. Now the later models are better. There have been some improvements, but there is increased cost for maintenance, and it's a lower level of durability, and it's those V8 engines that have been the nemesis for BMW reliability for the last X amount of years. And then over here we have yet another BMW, another X5. This one's an xDrive 45e. Now this one has the B58, but this time it's coupled up to a hybrid system. So this one's a plug-in hybrid with their most reliable engine. As you look around, I love the style of this. This does have the blue oval, and you can tell that basically gives away that there's an electrified element of this vehicle. Here you've got your plug-in port right there because it is a plug-in hybrid. You look right there, electrified by I. So there you have it. These are one of the most durable vehicles. These, not so much. Now the X7 with the 40i, I already said, the B58, it's a durable workhorse. But again, as soon as you step into the twin turbo V8, that's where some of the problems start to arise. Now, they have gotten a lot better, and a lot of people are saying, hey, I've had one, I've got 30,000 miles, and it's great, it's reliable. But I say count your chickens when you've got 150,000 miles. That's what I'd like to hear more of, because those engines, usually there were problems with the older twin turbo V8s because they've got a hot V, okay? So they've got 2 turbos in the V. There wasn't enough shielding in the earlier generations, so it cooked the heads. You ended up with valve guide seals burning up, essentially, not literally, but they would start to melt and you'd start consuming oil. Timing chain problems, battery draw issues, they just weren't all that great. Then, of course, they changed them. They improved the fueling, they improved the shielding, the turbocharging. They improved just about everything. So they're better today than they were many years ago in the earlier iterations. The latest TU upgrades are much better. That said, it's still an expensive engine to maintain. And when parts break, they're more difficult to replace. Access is more difficult, more expensive parts, and it's going to be a much more expensive experience. Rather, sticking with BMW's tried and true straight sixes are the engines that are going to likely get you that 150, 200,000 miles and beyond. As a matter of fact, I had a turbocharged diesel engine X535D a few years ago, and I absolutely loved it. When you do a proper delete and remove all the emissions equipment like they do in some locales, you can run that vehicle hundreds of thousands of miles, and it's actually one of their most reliable workhorses. The M57, definitely great engines. So realistically, it's not a matter of is BMW worth owning used, it's which BMW is worth owning used, because no two BMWs are the same, and different drivetrains will bring different levels of entertainment, driving experience, but reliability and cost of maintenance. So modern BMWs offer up a driving experience very few other European competitors actually do. Now, there are some great competition. Alfa makes some great competition, and of course Mercedes and Audi, but BMW exclusively puts it all together. They have a package that makes it handle well, go well, and the durability of a lot of the products is much better. As well, modern day BMWs still utilize a proper fitting right there and a proper exhaust tip, where a lot of the other brands are just blanking that off like Audis. Here again, the xDrive 40i means you've still got that great engine, that new B58 engine. So BMW does bring a great driving experience overall. Yes, there are some problems. Yes, there's some weaknesses, and yes, you're going to spend some money. Again, I've already said over $1,000. My personal experience, you're probably $1,000, $1,500 more if you start blending out the average costs of tires, brakes, and all the other failures you find along the way. Over a 10-year time frame, I've found you're probably going to more likely amp that up to $1,500 or more per year on average. But that's the cost of any vehicle. You get into a Volkswagen, you get into a Ford, you get into a Volvo, you get into an Acura, and you're going to be spending some money. They all depreciate, they all have wear and tear, and there are failures in every single brand. Now, of course, Acura is a Honda product. It's going to be a durable product for the long haul, and likely is going to possibly outlast most BMWs, but not by a ton. And when you look at examples like this 2020 X5, this is the M50i, this vehicle was brand new, about $120,000 Canadian, and now they're asking 65 grand. That's about 48% is gone off its value in the first 5 years. Then you look at this X7, they're asking $59,000. Well, this vehicle here was around $95,000 brand new. So again, you're at that 35 to 40% discount after only 3 short years. So pretty significant message about how much money can be saved in 3 to 5 years. People fear the maintenance, people fear the repairs and the reliability challenges, but just know that there's certain engines worth buying and certain ones you want to avoid like the plague. And with very few modern luxury vehicles offering manual gearboxes, BMW still offers it in some of their M cars, M3, M4 cars as a certain option. You have reliable engines and drivetrains, and clearly one of the best driving experiences in the luxury car segment. It begs the question, why wouldn't you buy a used BMW? And as well, always right there, check out why are used BMWs so cheap. I get into the whole story. Hope to see each and every one in the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.